Joe Barry Carroll was a versatile 7-foot center who could score in bunches effortlessly from an arsenal of post moves and hook shots, tied in with the occasional mid-range jump shot. While on the defensive side of the ball, he protected the rim well, having multiple multi-block games on the regular. Starring in college, leading Purdue to a Final Four, ending up getting drafted number 1 overall in the NBA draft, yet will always be tied to who he was traded for the day before, being traded for 2 future Hall of Famers in Kevin McHale and Robert Parish, hurting Carroll's reputation day one as they thrived, becoming multiple-time All-Stars, winning championships, making many label Joe Barry Carroll a bust, which is rather foolish when you take a deeper look, as he was a consistent 20-point-per-game scorer in Golden State and guided the team back to the playoffs and made an All-Star appearance. Yet again, his highlights will often be overshadowed by his approach to things, as he was an even-tempered individual, never showing much emotion, which hurt his reputation, with most questioning his heart, as Carroll often seemed to treat basketball as a job rather than a passion, earning him a rather unsavory nickname in Joe Barely Cares, whether it was fair or not. Though most expected or wanted more out of him, you could not argue against Carroll's production on the court, as he put together a solid 10-year career with averages most players would dream of. This is a look back on Joe Barry Carroll's career. Joe Barry Carroll was born in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, growing up there and later moving to Denver, attending East High School, where Carroll would end up deciding to play basketball after he realized he could get into college for free with a scholarship. And standing at 7 foot tall, he thrived on the court, becoming a high school All-American according to Midwest Coach and Athlete magazine, getting him the chance to attend school for free like he wanted, deciding to attend Purdue to play for Fred Schaus. Carroll found himself joining a Boilermaker team that featured Walter Jordan, Tom Scheffler, and Jerry Seasting. With Purdue already having Scheffler manning the center position, Carroll came off the bench his freshman year as the 6th man to average 7.9 points, 7.4 rebounds, and 2.9 blocks, helping Purdue go 20-8, making the NCAA tournament, where they'd get bounced round 1 to Phil Ford, North Carolina, losing down the stretch by 3 points, in a game that saw Carroll struggle on the court, recording 3 points, 2 blocks, and 8 rebounds. After the season, Tom Scheffler had graduated and went to the NBA, resulting in Joe Barry Carroll being inserted into the starting lineup the following season. As a starter, Carroll became the Boilermakers' second option to Jordan, averaging 15.6 points, 10.7 rebounds, and 3.9 blocks. The highlight on the season for Joe Barry Carroll was against Arizona, when he became the first and only player in program history to have a triple-double in a game, finishing with 16 points, 16 rebounds, and a school record 11 blocks. This would be one of the bright spots for Purdue this season, as they underperformed, going 16-11, missing the tournament. Afterwards, Purdue had a busy off-season, seeing Walter Jordan graduate, turning pro, and then saw Fred Schaus step down, and in came Lee Rose to be the team's new head coach. Rose would change up how the Boilermakers played, slowing down the tempo in order to play through Joe Barry Carroll, seeing Carroll lead the way for the team next season, averaging 22.8 points, 2 blocks, and 10.1 rebounds, becoming a third-team All-American as he guided Purdue to a 27-8 record in a Big Ten regular season championship. However, they were tied with Michigan State and Iowa for Big Ten regular season champions. So the NCAA tournament gave the bids to both Iowa and Michigan State, as at the time the NCAA tournament only allowed 2 teams per league, so Purdue missed out. Where in the dance, Michigan State, led by Magic Johnson, went on to win the NCAA tournament, being a team that Purdue saw split its regular season series against. Purdue, however, would get into the NIT instead, seeing Carroll lead Purdue in the tournament to the championship game, where they would drop the final game to in-state rival Indiana, led by Mike Woodson, after Carroll missed a couple pivotal free throws late, and Butch Carter capitalized, hitting a game winner with 4 seconds left, winning the game for IU 53-52. Afterwards, Jerry Seasting graduated and went on to play in the NBA, and next season Keith Edmondson stepped up to fill the hole left behind for the Boilermakers, keeping them successful, aiding Carroll, who kept on his dominant form from the year prior, averaging 22.3 points, 2.8 blocks, and 9.2 rebounds, making him a first-team All-American after getting Purdue into the NCAA tournament this time after going 23-10 as a 6th seed. Purdue got off to a quick start in the tournament, winning their first 2 games against LaSalle and St. John's, as Joe Barry Carroll carried the team, having 33 points and 13 rebounds round 1 and 36 points and 12 rebounds round 2. Entering the Sweet 16, Purdue met their rivals in the Indiana Hoosiers, who were the 2 seed led by Isaiah Thomas. Carroll would cool off from the strong start to the tournament, but Edmondson stepped up his play, upsetting IU, making it into the Elite 8. Elite 8 brought a matchup of the centers, pitting Mike Jaminski and Duke against Purdue and Joe Barry Carroll. In the head-to-head, Carroll would have the last laugh, outplaying him, scoring 26 points and grabbing 6 rebounds, getting Purdue a victory, reaching the Final Four, where their run would end against Kiki Vandeweghe and UCLA, as they had a deeper team and managed to slow down Carroll to 17 points, even though this UCLA team's wins would later be vacated due to several violations. Joe Barry Carroll would end up ending his college career strong in the 3rd place game, guiding Purdue to a win after having 35 points, 4 blocks, and 12 rebounds. Carroll would go down as one of the best players in program history, being the first in rebounds and blocks in school history, and second in points for now, as Zach Edey is looking to pass him soon. After the successful college career, Joe Barry Carroll was a top 3 prospect entering the NBA draft, as he was the best center on the board in a league dominated by centers. As over his 4 years, Carroll had showcased being a mobile defender and a good shot blocker, while offensively he scored with a well-developed mix of post moves, jump hooks, and mid-range jumpers. Entering the NBA draft, the Boston Celtics held the number 1 overall pick before they would move the pick the day before the draft in a trade that defined Carroll's career. The Boston Celtics would trade the number 1 overall pick and the 13th overall pick in the draft to the Golden State Warriors for Robert Parish and the 3rd overall pick. Having traded away Parish to Boston, the pick was clear at number 1, seeing the Warriors take Joe Barry Carroll with the 1st overall pick. In hindsight, trading Robert Parish for Joe Barry Carroll would hurt enough on its own, but the 3rd pick by the Celtics ended up being Kevin McHale, meaning the Warriors had traded away 2 future Hall of Famers for Joe Barry Carroll. Though the move in hindsight is beyond bad, the Warriors made the move at the time as they were a cash-strapped team and could not afford to pay Parish, so they thought they'd at least get something for him before losing him. Altogether, though, it ended in Joe Barry Carroll's career forever being compared to both McHale and Parish's career, whether fair or not. Carroll, his rookie season, was joining a below-average Warriors team that featured Bernard King, World B. Free, Larry Smith, and Purvis Short. Joe Barry Carroll stepped right in to be the team's starting center and became a focal point on the team to average 18.9 points, 9.3 rebounds, and 1.5 blocks, picking up all rookie first-team honors for his play as the Warriors went 39-43, missing the playoffs. The following season, Carroll took fewer shot attempts per game as Free and King were shooting in bunches, seeing Joe Barry Carroll average 17 points, 8.3 rebounds, and 1.7 blocks for a Warriors team that was steadily improving, going 45-37, yet just missed out on the playoffs. However, in the offseason, the Warriors could not meet the financial demands of Bernard King, seeing the team trade him away for Michael Ray Richardson. With the swap, most thought Richardson would fulfill King's role, but his drug problem escalated at the time, causing a hole in the offense. A hole that Joe Barry Carroll filled, becoming the team's leading scorer to average 24.1 points, 2 blocks, and 8.7 rebounds. Carroll was one of the bright spots in the team this season, even going for a career-high 52 points versus the Jazz. Unfortunately, all the while, Richardson was all but absent for the Warriors, struggling, even being traded away mid-season shortly into his tenure with the team for Sleepy Floyd, as the Warriors admitted their mistake, seeing the team massively underperforming, ending in World B. Free also being traded away as they weren't competing, as they ended the year going 30-52, missing the playoffs. Many expected Joe Barry Carroll to keep improving the next season, however he took a step back, becoming the 2nd player within the offense behind Short to average 20.5 points, 8 rebounds, and 1.8 blocks as the team underperformed again, seeing Carroll's critics grow as he was dubiously nicknamed Joe Barely Cares, which stems from his stoic demeanor that never saw him get high or low, ending in many questioning his drive to being great on the court. All the while, Parish and McHale were having great successes, being all-stars and winning championships, growing Joe Barry Carroll's legacy for all the wrong reasons even further. as the Golden State Warriors went 37-45, missing the playoffs. In the offseason, like many Warriors before him, Joe Barry Carroll wanted to get paid, yet the front office and him could never reach an agreement, so in the middle of his prime, Carroll would go play overseas for the 84-85 season with Samek Milano, better known as Olimpia Milano today. Joe Barry Carroll with Milano dominated on the court, leading the team to become Italian Serie A champions and the FIBA Korak Cup champs. After the successful season overseas, Carroll would come back to the NBA, reaching a contract agreement with Milwaukee Bucks. However, the Warriors still held his rights, and under new ownership in an unprecedented move for the Warriors, they matched the contract, bringing Joe Barry Carroll back to Golden State. Carroll was rejoining a Warriors team that struggled in his absence that was largely the same, but had added Chris Mullin in the draft after the poor season. Joe Barry Carroll found his form again quickly like he had never left, averaging 21.2 points, 1.8 blocks, and 8.5 rebounds, helping the Warriors improve from the prior season, yet were still rather bad, going 30-52, missing the playoffs. Next season, the Warriors started to put things together with its young players improving, and Carroll anchoring the team, averaging 21.2 points, 7.3 rebounds, and 1.5 blocks, making the All-Star game as he had the Warriors playoff bound, going 42-40, shutting up some of his critics. The Warriors entered the playoffs as the 5 seed, getting a series against the Utah Jazz, who were led by Karl Malone, Thurl Bailey, John Stockton, Daryl Griffith, and Mark Eaton. The Jazz got off to a hot start in the series thanks to its bench, as Bailey and Griffith led the Jazz to a 2-0 series lead, even though Carroll was playing well in the beginning stretches for the Warriors, being the leading scorer for the team the first 2 games. However, the start to the series is most known for its Game 2 all-out brawl at the end of the game, seeing fans, coaches, and players in the middle of it all. The Warriors, facing elimination heading to Golden State, found new life sparked by the brawl in home court behind Floyd and Short, tying the series up, sending it back to Utah for a winner-go-home Game 5. Game 5, Golden State rode its newfound confidence, and Joe Barry Carroll led them to a victory, having a game-high 24 points to go with 8 rebounds and 6 blocks, becoming the second team ever to come back from down 2-0 to win a series in a best-of-5. Carroll had gotten the Warriors into round 2, creating a matchup against the once-seeded Los Angeles Lakers with Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Byron Scott, James Worthy, and Michael Cooper. The Lakers were often cruising to start the series, thumping the Warriors the first 3 games to no one's surprise, as Joe Barry Carroll was the leading scorer for the Warriors for each of the games with 22 points Game 1, 22 points Game 2, and 23 points Game 3. However, his heart was called into question, and his legacy of Joe Barely Cares grew further, negating the strong season to rid of that reputation, as after the loss Game 3, head coach George Karl was ripping into the team for the bad loss by 25 points, when Carroll interrupted saying, "Coach, why don't you just relax? We're not good enough to beat the Lakers. We have had a great year. Why don't you just relax and cool down?" which made Karl irate, who tore up his locker, becoming extremely frustrated by Carroll's heart, as he had all the talent in the world according to Karl himself, yet lacked the heart. The following game, Joe Barry Carroll kept on his solid form to the series, seeming undeterred, going for 23 points, which would be overshadowed by Sleepy Floyd's 51-point game as the Warriors pulled one back. However, any comeback attempt was short-lived, as the following game, James Worthy got the Lakers back on track, winning the game and the series. Joe Barry Carroll had a successful postseason on the court, averaging 18.9 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 2.5 blocks, being a big part of the Warriors' postseason success, getting past Utah as he led the way, and even against the Lakers, Carroll had outplayed Kareem for the most part. But all of his successes these playoffs would be overshadowed by him seeming to give up on the series after a Game 3 defeat, and more focus on off-the-court things like the stock market or philanthropy. The following season, Joe Barry Carroll was expected to remain at his all-star form, yet he took several steps back to start the season as other players took over in the offense, and he seemed to lack the same aggression he once had, creating a drift between himself and head coach George Karl, ending in him getting traded away shortly into the season. Joe Barry Carroll was traded by the Golden State Warriors, with Sleepy Floyd to the Houston Rockets for Steve Harris and Ralph Sampson. Seeing the Rockets make the move as Sampson had begun to butt heads with Houston's head coach, and the team hoping to get Carroll back to his all-star form from a year ago. Carroll was looked upon to star alongside Hakeem Olajuwon, just as Ralph Sampson had done for a couple of years. However, Joe Barry Carroll failed to mesh with Olajuwon, seeing him split time coming off the bench and starting to average 12.7 points, 1.4 blocks, and 6.4 rebounds on the season. Meanwhile, the Rockets, carried by Olajuwon, got into the playoffs, going 46-36 as the 6th seed, getting a series round 1 with the Dallas Mavericks, who were a deep team with Mark Aguirre, Rolando Blackman, Roy Tarpley, Sam Perkins, James Donaldson, and Derek Harper. The Mavericks took Game 1 as 8 players were in double figures in the scoring column. Game 2, the Rockets evened the series up as both Floyd and Olajuwon went for 40-plus points. The following game, Hakeem kept up his strong form, and Carroll aided him with his personal best game of the series with 16 points and 9 rebounds. However, his efforts would be for naught as Tarpley hit a couple timely buckets down the stretch to give the Mavericks a 1-point win. In Game 4, the Rockets, trying to avoid elimination, looked the same as most of the series, seeing Olajuwon dominate, but the Mavericks having a better team behind Aguirre defeating the Rockets, sending them home 3-1. Over the series, Carroll played similar to that of the regular season, being third on the team in points and rebounds at 11 points and 4.8 rebounds, not providing a whole lot of support to Olajuwon. After the Joe Barry Carroll experiment did not work out, the Houston Rockets traded him away, trading Joe Barry Carroll with Lester Connor to the New Jersey Nets for Tony Brown, Frank Johnson, Tim McCormick, and Lorenzo Romar. Carroll was joining a Nets team that was trending downwards, led by Buck Williams, Chris Morris, and Roy Hinson. Joe Barry Carroll stepped in to be the team's starting center as the Nets played a balanced style of ball, seeing him become second on the team in scoring, rebounds, and blocks at 14.1 points, 7.4 rebounds, and 1.3 blocks in 64 games as he missed a couple of games with injuries, for a Nets team that was near the bottom of the league, going 26-56. In the offseason, the Nets traded away Buck Williams for Mookie Blaylock and Sam Bowie, which the move for Bowie made Carroll expendable as they both played the center position, seeing Carroll in a reduced role to start the following season before getting traded away. The Nets traded Joe Barry Carroll to the Denver Nuggets for Michael Cutright. Joe Barry Carroll was joining a playoff caliber Nuggets team that featured Alex English, Michael Adams, and Walter Davis. Carroll became the starting center to aid in the playoff push, averaging 10 points, 1.5 blocks, and 5.8 rebounds on the season, helping the Nuggets go 43-39, making the playoffs the 7th seed, meeting the San Antonio Spurs round 1, where the big three of David Robinson, Willie Anderson, and Terry Cummings proved way too much to handle for them, as the Spurs swept the Nuggets comfortably in a series that saw almost the entire Nuggets team underperform, including Carroll as he struggled going against Robinson, averaging 6.7 points, 1.7 blocks, and 3 rebounds over the series. In the offseason, Joe Barry Carroll was a free agent and would sign on mid-year with the Phoenix Suns, who were a team that had just come off a conference finals appearance with Tom Chambers, Kevin Johnson, Xavier McDaniel, Jeff Hornacek, and Dan Marley. Carroll was brought in to provide backup minutes at the center position to Mark West. However, it was a rocky start joining mid-season for Joe Barry Carroll as he had to get himself into game shape and spent time dealing with a hamstring issue, ending in Carroll going for 11 games to average 3.4 points and 2.2 rebounds off the bench. All the while, the Suns went 55-27, getting into the playoffs the 5 seed, matching up against the Utah Jazz round 1, who were largely the same team since Carroll's last playoff series against them, but they had added Jeff Malone into the mix. It was the second year in a row the two teams had met in the playoffs, and this time Karl Malone would exact his revenge for last postseason, dominating against the Suns, winning the series for the Jazz 3-1 as Jeff Malone and Stockton complimented him well. Carroll was healthy for the playoffs, yet did not really have a role within the team as he played in 2 games, averaging 4 points in garbage time. After the season, the Suns waived Joe Barry Carroll, and soon after he called it a career, deciding to retire. Joe Barry Carroll, over 10 years in the NBA, had averaged 17.7 points, 7.7 rebounds, and 1.6 blocks. In retirement, Carroll stayed active and successful in whatever he did, following his passions, becoming an investment advisor, author, philanthropist, and painter, all of which he has received acclaim for. Though Joe Barry Carroll will be remembered by most for his basketball career, on the court, Carroll was a force when he wanted to be, being a solid defender and a shot blocker, while on the offensive side of the ball, he scored in bunches from an arsenal of post moves and hook shots tied in with the occasional mid-range shot, relying on outsmarting the opponent. However, his career will be tied to a lot of only ifs, first being traded for two Hall of Famers in McHale and Parish, not putting together the career either of them did, nor did he show intensity on the court which most wanted Carroll to bring, as he was a level-headed guy for better or worse. But calling Joe Barry Carroll a bust would be outright wrong, as he was a consistent 20-point-per-game scorer with the Warriors and made an all-star team, guiding them into the playoffs for the first time in a while and getting a series win as he was leading the way, before bouncing around to end his career providing steady minutes. No, Joe Barry Carroll's career did not go exactly to plan, yet it was still a rather successful one. Thanks for watching this video on Joe Barry Carroll's career. If you want to see any other videos about any other random players, leave them in the comments below and I may or may not decide to do them. Who knows? Thanks again for watching. This has been Skid Denver.